All right, everybody. Welcome to another Tanya class. Well, since it's in 9 days, we'll do l'chaim and coffee. I mean,
is that thing you don't drink alcohol?
You're not supposed to drink wine. You don't drink wine and meat. I don't do
Yes, you just go
I stay away from alcohol.
For sure.
You? During 9 days. Well, not during Shabbos. Although Shabbos is coming up and we'll make up for it. Right? All right, so a short synopsis, recap. In chapter 1, we learned about the fact that there's a person has two souls, two consciousness, nefesh bahamis and nefesh lakis, an animal soul and godly soul. We spent most of chapter 1 on the animal soul. It's made up of, it has its four characteristics based on the different types of creation, the four elements. Laziness, which comes from earth, and wind leads to hot air and nonsense, and fire is passion, and water is pleasure. And then chapter 2 we said that there's a godly soul, and the godly soul is actually a part of God and comes from God's wisdom. And then in chapter 3 we started to explain just how that soul is made up, because the soul itself is a part of God, is pashut, is simple, meaning when something simple it's uncomplicated. But it's experience, it has 10 character traits, 10 faculties, and that is 3 intellectual and 7 emotional. There's 3 intellectual are chabad, chachma min hadas, conception, contemplation, and application, and then there's 7 emotional. But most of the time, the Alter Rebbe discusses in Tanya, it's ava and yira, which are basically the 2 foundational emotional character traits. Ava is love, yira is fear. All right, so chapter 1, 2, and 3, we dealt with the core and the subconscious. Chapter 4, we're going to deal with conscious expression to yourself and to other people. Now, expression, because you have a choice of how to express yourself, anything that you can change does not go to the core of your character. So what Alter Rebbe is going to call these methods of expression, they're going to call them levushim. Levushim means garments, because your garment is not who you are. Your garment expresses what you feel. So you go to a wedding and you show up in shorts and a t-shirt. You don't show up like this, to a wedding. I'm the same person, yeah, but you're sending the wrong message. So it's interchangeable, just like how you feel. Your mood is interchangeable. And let's go inside, and everyone, as always, you're encouraged to ask questions. So at any time you want, just interrupt. If I don't answer you, it's because I don't like you. I'm kidding. The oid, and furthermore, in addition to the 2 consciousness, the soul, the animal soul, and the godly soul, and the 10 faculties. Yesh l'chol nefesh l'kis. Every single godly soul has shloshel levushim, 3 garments. And what are these 3 garments? They're Makshava, thought, dibur, speech, maisa, and action. Now, don't confuse Makshava with seichel. That's not. Seichel is intellect. That's your power to process information. That doesn't change. Some people have sharp intellect, some people have good memories, some people have a combination of both, some people are better, more concrete, some people abstract. That can't change. You can't change what you are. Makshava is not really thought. Makshava is really thinking. You can choose what to think about. You can change. You can change what you think about, and you can change what you speak about, and you can change your action. So the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, long time, the godly soul, how does it want to express itself? It wants to express itself in Makshava, Dibur, Maisa, thought, speech, and action of Taryag Mitzvah Satira, the 613 attributes of the Torah. So you have your subconscious, you have your consciousness. And how does a godly soul find expression? Through thought, speech, and action of Torah. When a person fulfills in action, called mitzvahs maisis, any of the practical mitzvahs, puts on tefillin, puts money in the tzedakah pushkin, in tzedakah box, shaking the lulav, whatever it is, uvedibor, or in speech, u'eseg bepirush, kol tayar mitzvahs v'lechasein, or he occupies himself in the expounding of the 613 commandments. Somewhere else in Chassidus, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent, that dibur, many times we discredit dibur, speech and action, as very external and therefore had nothing to do with us. And we thinking that's something personal. But speech, that's, you can talk. But in reality, until you can speak it out, you don't really understand. Or sometimes you have a problem, and in your mind it's a very, very big problem, and you start to talk out the problem, and all of a sudden things begin. Not in Tanya, but in other places it talks about how speech is actually building. It's Hashem, because when you speak, it makes everything clear, and it draws out the power of intellect. Speech draws intellect. So if you're ever a teacher, quit. Okay. If you're ever a teacher, and I remember when I used to teach, I would prepare the Mishnah or the Gemara, and in my mind it made 100% sense. But when I had to teach it and I would start saying it, all of a sudden it didn't make sense anymore. So speech helps to draw out. So also sometimes when you have a task to do, when you write it down, the action, there's something about there's permanence over there. Anyway, or Makshava, or in thought, who masik kol ma'ashev shalei lahasik b'pardes haTorah. He with his thought he understands any level of pardes of the Torah. Now we're gonna just explain, because Alter Rebbe is mentioned it, so we'll explain it very, very, very briefly. Pardes is a Hebrew word for orchard. It's also an acronym for Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Soid. So the Torah is divided into 4 general categories. And the 4 general categories are this. Pei stands for Pshat. The translation of the text, that's what it is. No funny business. That's exactly how it is. Then you can look at the choice of words. What did the verse say? What did the verse didn't say? You could read in between the lines. So, like, for example, the previous class we had the fact that it says Nachamu Ami, double measure of comfort. Why the double language? That second level is called remez. Remez is hint. Then there's the third. So the pshat, pretty much anyone could do. Could translate the text. Hopefully do it correctly. Remez, you need to be a little bit more skilled, because you need to have a broader view of the style of the text. It's like me and art, right? I don't know anything about art. I look at a painting, either it's good or it's not good. What was the artist feeling? Like making a painting? I have no idea. See the way he's doing with his brushstrokes? To me, Monet, Van Gogh, I don't know. To me, it's all. I don't get it, right? Modern, I don't get it. But so pshat is, you see it, that's what it is. Remez is you start studying, between the lines. A third level is called drash. Now drash is already an advanced level that you can't just decide to do on your own, because drash is a methodology of extracting from the text that only the author can tell you. And you can't dictate, this is what I mean. I have to tell you this is what I mean. If something really out there. So for example, the drash, is all these things that are taught in Torah that you can look from beginning to the end and you'll never figure it out. The paragraph before Hodom, page 25, Shmuel said the 13 methods of how the Torah is expanded. So, for example, if you ask, how do we know what the law is in modern day times? How's a rabbi supposed to figure out about some technological problem? That's what's halacha? That's drash. You have to use the 13 methods to apply ancient text to modern day. That's drash. Now you can't just decide to do it. I don't mean you as in present company. I mean, a person can't decide to do it unless he's an expert. And how are you an expert? You study from previous experts. You get, I don't know if there's an equivalent in modern. You can only become an expert if a previous expert says you're an expert. Is that something like that in modern day? No.
It would be
These
like
days you can go
guilds.
online. You can go online and get a certificate. Huh?
It would be like
Specifically like that.
a
No.
plumbing apprentice.
Yeah.
When you
And
get
a
your
plumber.
PhD, you don't just get it, you have to do it with someone who has their PhD in that field, and he supervises you, and
Okay.
basically
Yeah,
is
you get a committee.
Right.
and-
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
you
So
start
yeah.
writing.
So exactly. So you can't.
your
You,
dissertation is like it's supervised by someone specifically who already has
Yes,
their
you've
PhD.
got an
okay.
advisor.
So the same thing is so.
Exactly.
When it comes to Jewish law, not everybody gets an opinion. Pretty much, most people don't get an opinion because you're not an expert. You can only give an opinion how to apply Jewish law if you've been trained. Then, there's three. That's the third category. The fourth category is called sod. Sod means secret. It also means foundation. Some people like to use the hocus pocus word mysticism. You know, like if you know it, you can make pigs fly or whatever.
But sod is used also like yesod?
Yeah, that's the secret of how things work. So just to go off on the side, because usually when we learn this with some people, we learn this with somebody, they ask the question. So so in Kabbalah, there's really two areas of Kabbalah. There's Kabbalah Limudis and Kabbalah Masis, or in Sephardic pronunciation. There's Kabbalah Limudit and Kabbalah Masit. You could learn Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the blueprint of creation, knowing how things work. I could look at a blueprint and I can know how things work, but I can't build a car. I can watch a million YouTube videos. I don't. So Kabbalah Masit, which is not practiced anymore, which some people did know, is that's if you know the formula, then you can manipulate. Don't ask me how. There's some people that knew how to do it. It's not magic. It's not magic. Just like, for example, if you know the code, the HTML or programmer's code, you can manipulate the code. That's what that is. Again, I don't want to get into it because it's not practical. But some people, they gravitate more towards pshat. Some people, they gravitate more towards remes. Some people more to drash. So if you remember the story, did I tell you the story of the Al-Sheikh already once? I think I told you the story in this class. No? Al-Sheikh was a student of that. Thank you.
Or at least start, the names.
I said Al-Sheikh. This is only chapter 4. I mean, you guys better get used to me
Yes.
repeating.
Is it the one student that kept falling asleep?
Yes.
The lessons of
See,
this?
here's a guy who pays attention.
No, I knew this from.
Can I take some credit, please?
I'm
From a
not
different
gonna.
rabbi.
Exactly.
Wait,
Are you cheating on me with a
Wait,
different
so
rabbi?
you basically told him
Get
that
out.
your soul is in for this school
Yeah,
and
yeah.
write about Mishnah? Like
Yes.
do only and he wrote a great book
Are you
about
sure?
the Mishnah.
Are you sure it wasn't me that told you the
Yes,
story?
I am sure. I am sure.
You
You know what?
You came in his dream.
You did. Mordechai
Telling
definitely
you,
was the one
You know,
that.
I'm his
He
bad
is-
rabbi.
he is our great
All
leader.
mistakes I make. Anything good he learned from another rabbi. Are you related to my wife's family?
I'm
This
just
is
saying.
Masi. He's
You know,
using the formula.
Exactly.
The nice version is this would have been like, oh, you're right, it's not.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
right.
Yeah, right.
Moving on.
Anyway, so the story basically goes that the Al-Sheikh was a student of the Arizal. And every time he came to a class, and the Arizal would fall asleep, and it bothered him. So he asked the Arizal, so how come I can't keep my eyes open? So the Arizal told him, because I'm talking Sod, I'm talking Kabbalah. Your soul is in Drash. Halacha. Your soul doesn't connect.
So now that you said that, I do remember you saying it.
Thank you. But obviously,
Not in our school.
I didn't remember
I told the
before.
story.
Remember being beanbagged in there?
I told the story to everyone.
I don't remember when he said it.
I told the story to everyone but Asaf.
I really.
All right. Anyway,
Did I send you a audio today of something having to do with this?
I didn't listen to it.
You really didn't?
I didn't have time.
Oh well, you would have known where I got where the connection comes.
Now
Okay.
we understand the foundation of the relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
there's-
perfect.
there's a third
I
person involved
I
here.
speak. He doesn't listen. He speaks. I don't
I
listen.
don't exactly.
Right, you remind me. You remind me of the good joke. They asked the guy. He says, when we were going out, I spoke and she did the listening. When we first got married, she spoke and I did the listening. Now we both do the speaking and our neighbors do the listening. Okay, so when a person learns, so whichever one you now, in the future, and Tanya is going to say that if you find pleasure in something else, you should try to have iskafia. Iskafia is to hold back, but that's with material things. If you find yourself,
What's the word?
iskafia, it's Aramaic.
Oh, okay.
Aramaic. But over here, if you find yourself, you gravitate towards a certain area of Torah that finds you pleasure and fulfillment, then by all means. Doesn't mean you should negate it or ignore the other ones, but everyone should try their best. Harekolos taryag evari nafshe. So now, his soul's 613 organs, mulavashim betaryag mitzvah are clothed in the 613 commandments in the Torah. So, Kabbalah tells us that there's 613 commandments. There's also 613 organs, and just like the commandments are divided into 248 positive, 365 negative. So you have the 248 limbs and 365 sinews. So we'll read this note. Just as the human body consists of 248 organs, 65 vessels corresponding to the Torahs, so the soul embraces all of 613 commandments, the 613 organs. Now, the parentheses, the Alter Rebbe emphasizes of the word all the precepts which require physical action, and expounding all the 613 commandments, all that he's capable of understanding. Should his garments fail to include all 613 commandments, were he to omit one specific commandment, then the corresponding organ of the soul will remain bereft of its mitzvah garment. So to use a story to explain this, there are many stories of a person who had a problem with his eye, his leg, his arm, his this, that, business, whatever it was, and he checked the mezuzah, he checked the tefillin, something, and there was a problem. So Kabbalah explains, because your mezuzah, your tefillin, I'm going to hear something crazy. In 1994, these kids were going to visit the Rebbe in the hospital. They were getting onto the Brooklyn Bridge. There was Lebanese terrorists that shot the van. One kid, his Nachum Sazunkin, was shot in the head. At the back of the head, and he survived. One kid, his name is Ari Halberstam, and he died. That Shabbos, so we're reading the Torah in the shul he would go to, and there was a word in that parsha that was the problem. I had to switch to Sefer Torah. That word, I'm trying to think what the word was the abbreviation of his name, like his name and his last name. It was freaky. I'm telling you, sometimes a story happened a million years ago. I remember it happening. I was there. Again, every mitzvah is a conduit for your soul. Sometimes there's a disconnect between the power supply, so to speak, and the unit. So it results in a dysfunction of the tool. So, for example, if a person can't see, for example, right? Is that a soul problem?
No.
It's not a soul. The soul is whole. The problem is there's a connection. So why do you go to a Jew, let's say, who's not doing a mitzvah he should, and they tell him, I want to do a mitzvah. Right? He doesn't care about it because the soul is whole. We're trying to connect the two wires between this nefesh and this tool. So your arm without tefillin is naked. Right? Your head without tefillin is naked. Right? So the Alter Rebbe goes on to specify which components of the soul are clothed by which particular garment. He's going to give some specifics, but just to give an idea. So he says. So now, I skipped. I'm sorry. Here, with Proteus, on page 76 in the old text. With Proteus, in the new text? Or your
78.
78, yeah. Over Proteus specifically, Yechinas Chabad Sheva Nafshe. So you're part of your intellect, your intellectual power of your soul. Mulaveshes Basagas Atera is used to understand Torah. Shu Masig Pardes, where it comprehends the Pardes. Kifi Yichot Hasagat V'Sharish Nafsh Lemel, according to the extent of the mental capacity and the supernal root of your soul. So remember we spoke about it in chapter 2. You can be great parents, but the soul's not very capable. Or you can be, or you could be a person that has a great soul, but you don't have too much intellectual power. So to be really special, everything has to really line up. Line up personally. By the way, there were even in the Alter Rebbe's class of colleagues, there were people that were geniuses like the Alter Rebbe, and there were people that weren't necessarily genius. I mean, who am I to say something? But they were known as unbelievable scholars. But there were people who served Hashem and they were righteous. Like for example, Zusha of Anapoli. Zusha of Anapoli was a colleague of Alter Rebbe. Wasn't known as a great scholar per se. I mean, he learned Torah, but he wasn't considered like a prodigy and blow you away compared to everyone else. It all depends on your ability. But he still learned Torah to the best of his ability, which ultimately you have to do. The Hamidos and the Midos. Shehin Yira v'Ava, which are fear and love, and Feim will the same, and together with their offshoots, ramifications, basically everything that's included. Mulaveshet, mulavashot are enclosed b'kiyum mitzvah, ma'isa, with the fulfillment of the mitzvah. Why do you do a mitzvah, or why don't you do something? You can break it down very simple. You do a mitzvah because you love God. Straight out. Why do you refrain from doing something? Because you're afraid. Because you're in awe. You're afraid. That's so. Either you won't speak or do, or you will speak or do based on that. So, and the most important is learning Torah. So Alter Rebbe's previous statement that in comprehending Torah, the soul's faculty of intellect clothes itself in thought requires no further elaboration. His latter statement, however, that the midas are clothed in the fulfillment of the commandment, that requires further amplification. Why? Because what connection of fear or love have to do with action or speech? The seat of emotion is in the heart. How do they come to an action when one puts on tefillin or speech? And the answer says that the commandments are performance because they demand love and fear, and fullness generated by the vitality and depth. So we're actually going to get into Tanya here and other places. You can do the mitzvah, and there's also how you do the mitzvah. Not everybody does the mitzvah. Everyone has to put on tefillin, but not. If you remember,
It's one of the main things, though, the intention behind everything.
the main thing. Yeah, the main thing is action.
Right, but the intention behind the action is equally, if not sometimes more important. Because it's like, listen to Korbanos, they would literally not accept it if the wrong intentions behind it. So it's like the action you're bringing still, but then
Wait. Yeah, I think you're conflating two things. One second. What you're saying is true. One second.
Yeah.
The most important thing is action. You're referring to by a carbon sacrifice is specifically if someone had an intent that he would that the sacrifice would be eaten because they had a certain time frame, would be eaten outside the time frame. If someone just brought someone brought the sacrifice without any intent, just brought the sacrifice, it would still be kosher.
But if you brought the sacrifice with, let's say, like an arrogant intent, so it kind of like be like a little.
It still counts. I mean, it's not. Put it this way,
No, but
Pigel
wouldn't it sometimes be rejected if it was like brought in the wrong way.
up
with
above, not by the kohen. The kohen
they
couldn't
might
reject it.
accept it, but it wouldn't necessarily be accepted.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
his behalf, though.
I mean, the kohen's job is to bring it on the altar. In fact, one of the problems we're
Right,
now in Tisha B'Av,
Yeah.
one of the things that the prophet rebukes the Jewish people is God says, "You think I need you just to go throw an animal up on the altar?" It's like the Navi says, "Don't tear your clothing, tear your hearts."
Right.
One of the things that we kira libchem v'lei. And also another one where Hashem says, I'm going to reject your sacrifices of pishrechem. It's like a
Ezekiel.
it's what's it called? I'm trying to think of a good word, like the waste or disgusting, despised.
Yeah.
ultimately, though, actually going back, this was an argument that Korach had with Moshe. Korach said it's only about action.
Right.
Because we live in the world of action.
Right.
Moshe says no. It's mainly about action. Everyone has to put on tefillin, but you can't compare the way Moshe puts on tefillin.
For sure.
And so that was the argument. So basically, I mean, we'll see this in Tanya, that Alter Rebbe goes and says, "Oh, learning Torah is the best thing ever." They'll say, "Oh no, doing a mitzvah is the best thing ever," or "Doing this is the best thing ever," because ultimately it's not just one thing. A Jew is supposed to try to be a mosaic of a bunch of different things. Yeah, but ultimately, a person has to have action. He has to put on tefillin.
100%. The action is the
Right.
like I said, world of action, but at the same time, it's like
Yeah, so Kabbanis, you should know, by the way, in that
behind it.
it's interesting you bring that up, because according to Gemara says that that's one of the mitzvahs that we learn just for the sake of learning.
Karbanos?
No, that halacha pigul. The isser is pigul. Pigul means if someone brings a sacrifice and has intent
To waste the meat to save it for the next.
to eat it outside the mandated time frame. So the Gemara said that's never going to happen, because why would you bring the sacrifice with the intent of doing wrong? Just don't bring the sacrifice.
Right.
It's a stira mini obey. It's a contradiction in and of itself. That's when, again, but the Kohen doesn't know necessarily.
No, then it wouldn't be accepted. Like
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
above exactly. Like,
Yeah, but yeah, generally, you know, when the Navi talks about, Moshe says it also, that Hashem doesn't accept bribery.
right.
What does it mean, bribery? Because we all as human beings do that. You know, we misbehave and say, God, you know, I'll throw you a tefillin. You know, I'll make a nice cholent on Shabbos this way. Moshe says, which God do you think you're praying to? Really? You think you can buy off God? I mean, but this was a big problem. I mean, we're talking about the destruction of the temple. This was a big problem. The Jews would be here and there. They'd be serving idols, but then they'd be. But look, the best example we have in the Book of Kings with Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu Navi tells the Jewish people, pick a side. Either serve idols or serve God.
Right.
So the Gemara, the Midrash says, what kind of rabbi is that? Imagine the rabbi said, listen, guys, either choose church or synagogue. And the rabbi would say, everyone come to synagogue. Eliyahu had a big problem. It says because he went to the Jews and said, listen, you got to get better. What are you talking about? I'm religious. I'm observant. I come to shul every Shabbos. As long as the person, you know, thinks that, you know, self-justified, they'll never turn around. And then, in fact, you know, in the beginning, Paul, Peter, whichever one of those, Mendel, whichever one of those guys, what would he do? He would go talk to the pagans about Christianity, and he would eat whatever they would eat. He would come back to Jerusalem, and he would bring a sacrifice, a sin offering, and go to the mikveh. What do you think? This is a game? It's true you have to put on the boxes, but what Hashem wants you to understand, why you're putting on the boxes. It's not just. But ultimately, you got to put on the boxes.
Who's Paul?
So, I think we're covering the gamut over there, right?
Wait, hold on. What page is that?
So he says,
Which book do you want me to read?
wrong class. Let's go. Ki'ava. So because love, he sheirish kol ramach mitzvah. Love is the source of all 248 mitzvahs.
What's Lamach?
Ramach is 248. Resh is
Oh, the number.
yeah. Because what is love? What is love? Not the song. Love means, and you were starting to sing a song, weren't you? You were humming a song.
Yeah, love
Every
means
time,
baby don't
every
hurt me.
every time
Not more.
every time
That's not the one.
What is love?
every time I say something in shul, he starts quoting a song from the 50s or 60s. You don't know that song? No, I don't know the song. Anyway, so love means the desire to connect. That's what love is. Love means the desire. The definition of love is the desire to connect. Now, being that we are finite, and God is the infinite, we cannot dictate.
Is it the Jewish definition of love? The desire to connect. Where'd you
depends.
It's
Rabbi,
dependent.
it's dependent. Rabbi Akiva says that it's the definition of what is love is v'ahavta le'racha kamocha.
No, but
Which is
I'm
basically-
just wondering
that's
where
what
he
it
got that one from, because that one's a little clever. It's
I promise you, I didn't make it up myself.
seeking connection.
But I think that's pretty much the same.
No, but that's
I've
that,
heard putting
that
someone
is.
else's interests or needs before yours.
But again,
But
that's
seeking connection specifically is a clean answer.
but that's a result of seeking connection because you want to connect to the person, so you put his interest before yours.
Seeking
That's a
connection.
result.
You would attribute that to some kind of Jewish.
Yeah, it's
commentary?
it's expanded in Chassidus. Exactly where Chassidus. If you ask me, by the way, I have a. Shoot, do I have it here? There's a book,
look it up.
Hasidic.
No, I'm
Hasidic,
taking notes. I want to
Hasidic,
remember this line. It's a
Hasidic
clean
encyclopedia.
answer.
There
What
is
love?
there is a
Seeking
book
connection.
it's a Hasidic encyclopedia where it talks about where you can find these things expanded upon, because Chassidus is massive, and you have many times the Alter Rebbe, especially in Tanya. This is a very small book. I know we're going very slow, but it's a very, very small book. I mean, the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, and Alter Rebbe's son expanded their pages. And it's Samach Tzedek. I mean, they take a topic you're thinking 2 lines over here, and 200, 300, 400 pages, and little print, no break, just
No pictures.
no pictures, right? So Ava means a desire to connect. Love means now, being that the being that we're trying to connect to is infinite, and we are finite. The truth is, even with finite beings, I cannot dictate to you how I want to connect. You have to choose to accept. I can call you, but you have to answer, and I also can't dictate to you your phone number.
You don't have to. It's already programmed
But
in.
you can dictate to me my telephone number, but it doesn't matter. You have to call on the phone.
What I'm saying is, I can't decide to call you on a phone number that I choose.
Right.
You have to give me your phone number.
Yeah.
So a person wants to connect to the Eibusher. So one of the biggest problem is, right? I said, oh, well, I'm a holy person, and I love God in my heart, and I'm connected to God. Really? I mean, I don't want to make these people feel bad, and maybe the people watching will feel bad. It's okay. You're not present company. You should ask people if they hear I make them feel bad. So if I don't care
Yes.
to make the people here feel bad, I
Yes.
definitely don't make YouTube viewership. And so
Everyone's not.
I'm not a nice guy. Anyway, Cooper's coming up.
Coming up on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, many times I don't have the heart to tell these people. You can't decide to connect to God because that's the way you feel. It doesn't work that way. You're not serving God, you're serving yourself. You know, for example, right? If let's say you like action movies, you like Marvel, whatever it is, right? What's the newest? Flash? The newest one that came out?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's not Marvel, that's DC.
That's
Continue.
DC, but we get the gist.
Whatever. Every Monday or Thursday they come out with another superhero, right? Let's say, for example, you like Marvel DC, and your wife likes, some tearjerker, whatever it is, where, right? Obviously, they fall in love at the end, right? And you say, honey, for our anniversary, or your birthday, chick flick. There you go. For your birthday, I'm going to take you to watch The Flash. But because it's really important to me. She's looking at you like, it's not important to me. But no, it's okay because I feel good about it. Good luck. It doesn't work that way.
Better one is this little boy gives his mother a birthday gift, and it's a football.
By the way, if you want to see this is
But
if
it's
you want,
such a great opportunity for her to play football with
but
you.
if you want to see something very funny, JCPenney did like a series of commercials where guys are in the doghouse. Just look up, go to YouTube, look up commercial. I think it was JCPenney. Guys in the doghouse. It's hilarious. They're in the doghouse for giving the wrong gift. It's really, really funny. All right. So the point is, if you want to connect to the Eibusher, and it's not like Eibusher is Yiddish for God, by the way, or the one above actually. Eibusher means the one above. If you want to connect to God, it's not like God gave Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. You want to know why they get so much credit? Because they didn't have the Torah. They figured it out, so to speak, on their own. Hashem gave us a Torah. So you want to connect in the morning. You wake up and you put these black boxes. That's how you connect. So the reason why you put on tefillin is because your desire to connect to God. It's the only reason. There's no other reason. No guy in the middle of the Amazon rainforest was found wearing tefillin because he thought, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to put black boxes on my head.
So you're saying that it's because it would make me happy?
No, because you have a desire to connect to God.
I have a desire to connect with Hashem.
With Hashem, and Hashem, out of His kindness, said, you want to connect? Okay, here's how you do it. So on this day, you do this. On this day, you do this. On Pesach, you want to connect? You eat matzah. You don't have to put on tefillin. The way to connect, you're not allowed to put tefillin on Pesach. Why? Because that's not the way to connect right now. Right? On Yom Kippur, the way to connect is to not eat. On Shabbos, the mitzvah is to eat. That's so every mitzvah is to connect. And it says, and without it, and without it, they have no true substance. Without a practical, if you love your friend, or you love your wife, whatever it is, love the object, and you never do something for that person, do you love them? Think about a person you love. Kid, spouse, parent. Because you love them, you do something for them. To say, I love you, but sometimes we love all the people. What was that in New York by COVID? Everyone was saying, we have to help the people, the homeless and everything else. They started bringing the people to the Upper West Side. All of a sudden, the people Upper West Side didn't like them. Like, I love them from a distance.
It's the same that's happening with in the border, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now they're bringing it in buses to...
Exactly. So if you truly love, you can do something. Without it, so I'm going to say a story, which I'm going to say now, and I'm going to say it a million other times, because it's an unbelievable story. Mahash Friedman tells a story. He asked a guy to put on tefillin. Not interested. So you're not Jewish? So what do you mean? So, are you Jewish? Yeah. Put on tefillin. I don't want to. So you're not Jewish. So the guy's getting all offended. Like, how dare you offend and threaten or insinuate that I'm less of a Jew because I don't put on tefillin. So Jews put on tefillin. That's the way it is. If you're Jewish, you put on tefillin. A plus B. Bam. That's what it is. Because somebody who fulfills it in truth, who oyeves Hashem, you love Hashem, and he wants to cleave to Him. V'efshar, and it's impossible to truly cleave to God, to truly have a relationship. You want to have a relationship, without doing the 248 mitzvahs. All those people that say they have, you can't. You can't. Now, not to be confused, by the way, you can't because you don't, or you can't because you can't. Like, for example, going back, we can't bring a sacrifice. Does that mean we're serving God less? We're sinners because we can't bring a sacrifice? Obviously not.
No.
Right. So every mitzvah also depends on possibility. Like, even in the times of the temple, where you could bring a sacrifice, let's say you're not a kohen. I'm not a kohen.
Does it also depend on reasonability?
Meaning?
A person that just started a secular person,
Right.
they did not observe any of the mitzvah. Would you expect them to do all mitzvah in the second week of studies?
So,
Not you in particularly, but that's the example.
So in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about every Jew is expected to do everything. Now, however, the Tanya is talking to an adult Jew. An adult Jew does not mean the age on your passport, because the way a Jew is supposed to be raised, ideally, is in a Jewish home, with a Jewish education, starting from the beginning. That means when the kid turns 13. Turns 20, he's a well-rounded, educated adult, right? Like almost like when you graduate from college, you have world history, general knowledge. We learned about Rabbi Akiva. Right? Rabbi Akiva started learning when he was 1, when he was 40, Aleph base. You can't expect Rabbi Akiva at 41 to be like Rabbi Shmuel, who's a Kohen Gadol, 41. It's not the same. That answers your question. But the idea is you're just like in college. I mean, your graduating college is really connected to first grade.
Akiva and Ishmael were contemporaries. Right?
Yeah, Rabbi Akiva was a Baal Teshuva.
Yeah.
Started when he was 40, and Rabbi Shmuel was a Kohen Gadol. Grew up perfect. We have the story of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua also. Gamliel was a very rich man. We talked about last week. I can't remember which class this was. Rabbi Gamliel was very rich, and he had it easy. Serving Hashem was no problem. He could sit and learn Torah all day. Other rabbis had to work. Oh, we spoke about it on Shabbos.
Yeah.
On Shabbos and Pirkei Avos. Rabbi Yeshua was a blacksmith,
Right.
and his clothing was covered in soot and everything else. And Rabbi Gamliel says, "You live like this? This is how rabbis live." Rabbi Yeshua says, "Yeah, you live in a different world. A tzaddik lives in a different world." But the beautiful thing, what makes a nasi special, what makes a leader special, a rebbe, a Moshe Rabbeinu, a Yeshua special, is that although he's on top of Mount Sinai, so to speak, he's able to talk to, the Jew who's just beginning. Not all rabbis are able to. Like Shammai, for example. Shammai was a very great person. He couldn't deal with people's idiosyncrasies and nonsense. Learn the Torah on one foot. You get out of here. I spent 80 years of my life learning, and you want to come here and learn one foot. Hillel was a nasi. Hillel was a leader. He knew how to deal with people at their level, at the special element that's given to the leader of the Jewish people. All right. Okay, we said now all the way to the bottom of 77. The 248 commandments are the 248 organs of the king. I can explain elsewhere. We're going to explain in chapter 23 that when you're getting a hug, what's a mitzvah? The mitzvah is a limb. So when you're getting a hug, the arm. Oh, I don't want your arm. I want you. Yeah, but my arm is an extension of me. So the way to get a divine hug is to do a mitzvah. So just as each of the organs of the human being is a vessel for a particular soul power, that clothes itself, so that eye draws out from the soul the power of sight, and the ear draws out from the soul the power of hearing. So it is with each commandment, a vessel for each specific will, which clothes itself in that particular commandment. Each commandment expresses not only the will, Hashem's will, that a specific act can be carried, but also the particulars of its observance. Thus, it's understood that performing the commandment of achieves the unity with Hashem, whose will it expresses. It follows then that the love of Hashem clothes itself in 248 positive commandments. It is not their root and life force which leads them to observe. It is their root and life force which leads them to observe with the totality of one's being. But when one loves Hashem and desires to cleave to Him, he will perform it with zest. Vayira, and awe. Now, how does it translate? Fear? Right. I mean, I hesitate many times to translate yira as fear, because many times, at least in my mind, I don't know about you guys, but when I think of fear, I think of like a bear.
Awe?
Yeah, so that's why yira is awe.
Awe is like
Sounds like element
jaw
of fear to
dropping,
it.
seeing something that you never saw before that just amazes you.
Yeah,
You're in awe.
but here it's a little bit more. Yes.
But
That's
the difference
is.
between fear.
Yeah, but
and
here.
the
No,
word
but real
fear and the
true
word
awe, there's
awe.
like an element of fear to it.
Right. Meaning, awe means, well, the reason why jaw dropping,
Like scared.
jaw dropping is because you realize the awe or fear we're talking about over here is you realize just how dependent you are, or how great the other being is. When you start realizing how great the other being is, you're afraid to, it's reverent. Yeah, you're afraid to upset it, so to speak. It says vayira, and we're going to use fear for now. We'll get into later in Tanya. We'll get into more. Hisharish shesal leisasa is the root for the 365 do nots, the chants. Why kiyare? Because he's afraid to be defiant. Limre b'malach macham lachem. Because you think about Hashem, the infinite being, creator of heaven and earth, who gives me everything, yada 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 yada, which we're going to expand upon at a later point. And I should rebel against him. He said, "Don't do this." I'm going to do it. What do you think about that? How can you, so there's fear because he's much greater than you, and what could he do to you? So well, you know something. Let's leave it at fear. Let's leave it at fear. Then there's a year pnimis do. Then there's a more inner fear. Because the more you understand, let's go back a second. The first one is he's greater and he has absolute control over you. So you don't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
I got that saying right?
Yeah.
Upset apple. Okay. Number two, it's not that he's greater, more powerful, and I'm dependent and relying on him. There's a more mature. When you realize how great he is, it says a person is ashamed from God's greatness. So he won't from the all-seeing eye, you'll see him. So for example, a good parent, there's two ways a parent can parent a kid. One is fear. You know, if I don't listen, my dad's gonna slap me or hit me or punish me, take away my Game Boy, as I say, Game Boy. Dating myself. You know, or PlayStation 5, 6, 5,
7.
7. Didn't they just come out with a new console lately? Like a year ago or something?
Yeah, the Shree box.
Who?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, anyway. I'm
Say
trying to
you're
keep up.
studying Tanya.
I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to give a relevant example, right? I said Game Boy, if I use Atari or I'm gonna be
None of us want to play arcade games.
Right.
Clearly, for here studying Tanya.
right.
Does this come in
So
PlayStation 4?
That could be awesome.
Yeah, can I play this on
I
PlayStation?
never
Sure.
got into those games.
yeah. So when a person understands, just how great, so he feels small. When a person realizes his position and Hashem's position, he feels that how can I possibly do it? Going back to the parenting example, so you can either threaten your kid, or if a good parent, the kid won't want to disappoint his parent. That's the best parent. If a parent does it right, kid won't do it, because I don't want to see the look of my parent's eyes when he see that I did something wrong. If you can get your kid, if you can get your kid to do that, then you done something right. It's a more mature understanding. So the fear is not, my dad's gonna hit me, my dad's gonna slap me. That's a more basic. I respect my father, my mother, and I don't want them to be disappointed in me. So that's what that is. And therefore, called Tayevas Hashem, Asher Sunday, anything that Hashem finds abominable, which are klipas sitra achra, which are the klipas sitra achra, she nikasam adam tachton, which draw their nurture from the man below. V'achizasam he b'shasam mitzvos leisas. Okay, so let's finish off the class. Let's finish off the class with the definitions of the two things which we just mentioned now, and how they work, because they're going to be mentioned multiple times in Tanya. Klipa and sitra achra. Klipa literally means a shell. Now, what's the purpose of the shell? Purpose of a shell is two things. It's a positive and a negative. Its job is to obstruct you, the outsider, from getting inside. So it's a shell. It's a covering. That also has a positive, because without the shell, the fruit or the nut will never grow. But we're not talking about the clipper yet. I mean the positive part. We're talking about the negative. Anything, you can't see godliness, it's clipper. You see phone. You don't see godliness, it's clipper. So this phone is a shell for godliness. Everything in the world, going back to chapter 1, I think it was, everything in the world has godliness, has life force inside. You can't see it. Clipper.
Casing translates better than shell.
No, but clipper literally
Like
translates
casing.
as shell. Yeah, but
Shell.
casing.
Like shell, but
Yeah, you want to use
you're
casing.
supposed to like remove klipa.
Well, you can't remove it.
What do
Wait,
you do
wait.
in Netilat Hayadayim? Don't you like remove klipa?
Yes, because okay, hold on. So we're gonna get.
It's different.
So we actually spoke about this in chapter 1, if you remember.
These different things.
So klippa, everything in the world has klippa. Now the reason why, the good part of it is you would never be able to perceive it if not for the klippa. If the phone, metal, plastic wasn't here, you would never perceive the godliness that's here. So the klippa allows us to experience the godliness. Now, because it covers the godliness, it also allows it to be corrupted. Is the phone good or bad? The phone is. It could be used for good. It could be used for bad. Now, certain things cannot be used for good. Chazer. Why can't you eat chazer? Horse meat, pig meat, bear meat, dog meat, cat meat, whatever. Fill in the whatever it is.
It doesn't meet the laws.
But why? That's pshat and remez. We're talking about nasaid. We're talking about Kabbalah. Kabbalah explains is because the godliness inside. Actually, we're going to get into this chapter 9, I think. The godliness inside can never be utilized for good. It's called sholosh klipot atmeot. We touched on this in chapter 1, didn't we? The three holy. So, for example, tuma. When a person sleeps, there's tuma on his hands, so that's why you have to wash it off. That's klippa. Many times it's synonymous, but it's not exactly the same thing with sitra achra. Sitra achra is Aramaic for the other side. Now here comes the bad news, and I'm making a disclosure now. You want to continue living your life the way you have until now? Fine. Right now, I'm going to tell you the way the Alter Rebbe says it, and this is the reality. So, you've been advised.
Should we leave now?
If you want to. If you want to. There is no gray area. We often paint an image in our head that there's the good, that's Torah, Judaism, there's the bad, right? Fill in whatever it is, right? Whatever the Torah says, and then there's yogurt, ice cream, potato chips. Right? What?
Like power.
Yeah, right? So for example, if I'm eating ice cream on a Tuesday night, and they walk in and says, "Why are you eating ice cream? What am I doing wrong? I'm having ice cream. Leave me alone. I'm not bothering you. Am I hurting anybody? No. Is ice cream kosher? Yeah. Don't bother me." That doesn't exist. That is a false perception. The truth of the matter is that the world is divided into black and white, absolute black and white, and there's two sides. There's being productive, and there's not being productive. And only the boss gets to decide what's being productive, by the way. Either you're doing or you're indulging. That's it. So if you're in the side for Kedusha is synonymous with productivity. Either you're producing, you're doing good. If you're indulging in yourself, that's not good. It's not good. I don't care how. Just because it's kosher, not everything that has an OU, you have to eat. I remember I once saw a guy in Aroma. And I don't know, I guess we struck up a conversation, I guess online. I asked the guy, I said, "What are you doing here?" "No, we have to shop here." "What are you doing here?" "Oh, kosher food is healthier." I'm like, "Pfft."
The barakas is delicious.
Exactly. Because that's telling me it's holy, it's healthier. Take you to bar park, like. So,
It is though, in a sense. Like I'm sure some elements.
you think kosher cookies are healthier than
No, not that, because you're using that's trash either way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's wrong with cookies?
There's a lot.
But that's what the Rebbe says.
Thing, but again,
You didn't say there was something wrong with cookies.
It is.
Rabbi said that
He
there's
did,
two
he
sides
did.
to the cookie, and that's it. There's
the black and white,
there's
right?
only
There's one side.
Yeah, it's
So
a
you can
black
give
and
me
white cookie.
That's it.
No,
It's just the one.
So kosher food means you now have the ability to utilize it for good. Doesn't
Like the
make it
phone.
good, huh?
Just like the phone.
Yeah. So
But
so
if you eat
so
that
for example,
ice cream on Shabbos,
so for example, well, that's good. Well, but so for example, is a gun good or bad? A gun's bad.
What?
A gun is bad. It's meant to hurt people. Right? A sword. Swords are bad. Right? When they build the base of English, you weren't allowed to use swords, or even metal, because metal's bad. Right? The point that I'm trying to say, in our life, we're not getting so dramatic with swords and guns. They're not getting so dramatic. When you approach a kind bar, you're thinking, I'm just gonna have. That four-letter word is the biggest curse word in Tanya. Just. What does that mean, just? What do you mean? Imagine a guy's walking around the building. You're a big CEO, God willing, you'll be very rich one day, right? You have a big media company. You see that guy walking around. You know the famous, this famous joke. Guy bought a company, wants to lay down the law, and this guy's not being productive. He decides that he has to fire somebody. Walks into the hallway, right? Walks into the hallway, sees the guy standing there. He's like, "How much money do you make a week?" It's like $400. Here's $800 2 weeks, and God, get out of here. Who's next? Who was that guy? Like the pizza delivery guy, you know? Right? Meaning, imagine you're running a company and some schmo is just wandering around. I don't pay you to wander around. I pay you to work. God gives you, we said this was in Pirkei Avot last Shabbat. God, you are an employee. You're not an independent contractor, by the way. You are an employee. And as long as you are awake, from whatever time to whatever time, your job is to be productive. That doesn't mean you can't eat. But you're eating in order to be productive. Doesn't mean you can't sleep. You're sleeping to be productive. Right? Anything that you do that's not with the presence of mind of productivity is called the other side. Plain and simple. And you can fool yourself however you want it. Right? You can tell yourself that this hamburger or you need to eat this popcorn. Like the famous story of Yisrael Salanter with the chicken. You've heard the story before. Yisrael Salanter is the father of Musar, the father of the Musar movement. One time he came and he saw his student was eating chicken with gusto. So he goes over to the guy and says, "You like chicken, huh?" He says, "Oh, Rabbi, I love the chicken." So you love the chicken? "Oh, do I love chicken." So, do you know what they did to this poor chicken? So first they slaughtered its throat. Then they plucked out all its feathers, and then they put salt, and then they put it in the oven, and now you're eating it. Do you do this to all the people you love? You don't love the chicken, you love yourself. Right? That's Sitra Achra. Sitra Achra means the other side. Now, our job is to utilize Klippa for the side of Kedusha. That's what really life is about. Not to go from one extreme to the other extreme, is to utilize the world around us instead of just being indulgent for the right purpose. And I'll end up with a story. And we'll end it off. When they came to arrest the Alter Rebbe, the Russian government, because remember, we started in the beginning, we said that the Alter Rebbe was slandered by some people in the Jewish community, and they told the Russian government that he was trying to rebel against the government, he's trying to turn away Jews, trying to brainwash them. It was the whole story. So the Alter Rebbe escaped out of his back door, and he escaped with a student of his who was also a confidant. His name was Shmuel Munkus. And Alter Rebbe asked him, "Should I allow myself to be arrested?" No. When you're a tzaddik, and you're half up there and half down here, you can ask such a question. Shmuel Munkus said, like this: if you're a tzaddik, if you're truly a righteous person, God will protect you. Don't worry about it. Bullets can't harm you, so to speak. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. If you're not a tzaddik, if you're full of garbage, then what right did you have to take out the geschmack, the pleasure in the material world? With this line over here, right? I mean, as long as you have this on your mind, you can indulge in something because you're thinking, do I really need this? So that's what it's about. So Klippa is our ability to experience something, and it leaves it up to us. Now, how we utilize that Klippa, it defines if it's going to be on the side of Kedusha, of holiness, or, it's like 1950s television, you can't say hell. The other side, right? Any questions?
Too many to list.
Yeah.
Well, you can ask. So the schedule is going to be next Tuesday. Going to have a class. I'm going to wait for two Tuesdays. So we'll learn again chapter 4. Maybe we'll learn a little extra. And actually, chapter 4 is very long. All right.